I have 3 boxes that I've thrifted or have had given to me that are either outdated or they just plain need a good makeover. Today, that's what I'm doing. I'm giving these 3 boxes that are pretty sad. I'm giving them a great makeover, and I can't wait for you to see how they turn out. Hey everybody, my name's Melissa. Welcome back to my channel, and welcome if you're new. Now, let's go ahead and see how I turn these boxes into beautiful home decor. This is a box that actually someone in my neighborhood gave to me. They know that I like doing thrift makeovers, and so she walked across the street one day and gave me a bunch of stuff, and this box was one of them. So I'm gonna make this over today, and I'm gonna use this Country Chic paint, and part of the name is off, so I'll put it on the screen, but I'm gonna go ahead and paint the body of this, the lid, and the bottom. I'm gonna leave the feet because I'm at this point, I'm not really sure which direction I'm gonna go besides the light blue color, but I am gonna do something with the feet, something different than the body of the box. But I do go ahead and give this 2 coats of this Country Chic paint. And I will put a link in the description box from Amazon because I do know that you can get some of the colors of Country Chic from Amazon. So I'll see if I can find this color. Now, once all of that was dry, I decided to go ahead and paint the feet of the box white, and actually not completely white. It's actually plaster in the Waverly chalk paint. And I started out with this big brush, and then I decided that this was gonna be too tedious for me to use this bigger brush. So I did go and get a smaller brush, but once I got the smaller brush, I just paint around all of the edges, like that where the feet and the box meet. And I did paint all the way around the feet. I didn't paint the bottom. I'm not sure yet if I'm gonna paint the bottom, just because it has these little pads on them and they're kind of hard to take off, and I don't want to mess it up. So I'll probably just leave the bottom like it is, but I do give the feet 2 coats of the plaster paint, and then I go to the lid and I paint the knob of the lid with that same color. And then with whatever paint is left on the brush, I just dry brush around the details. And then for the body, I take the bigger brush and I do the same dry brush technique on all of those details around the entire box. Once that paint is dry, I'm going to finish this project up with some matte clear enamel by Rust-Oleum, and I just spray the box all the way around and make sure I get those feet as well. But once I let this dry, this project is finished. And this is how it turned out. I can't wait to hear what you think about it. I just think that this is just so lovely and so dainty. I love this blue color, and I just think the white on top of it is just perfect. Let me know what you think. When I saw this box at the thrift store, I knew I wanted to make it over just because I love the shape of it and how it opens up, kind of like a little desk. So, but I definitely don't want to use it as a Christmas box. This is very yellowy and it looks old and not in a good way. So I do feel a little bit erased, so I am going to sand some of that down just to try to get in case there's any raised. But I do want to try to seal in all those different colors, so I'm going to use the Zinsser shellac over the whole thing on the outside, and hopefully this will help any of that yellow not to bleed through, because I am going to paint it with a light color and I don't want that yellow to bleed through. But I did also want to kind of cover my bases, so I'm using this Kills primer, and I'm especially going to use it mainly for the inside, just because I know that that top part is going to be kind of hard to paint. So hopefully, and it's even kind of hard to spray paint, but hopefully that will help me when I go to paint the box. But I do go ahead and spray all of the rest of the box inside and out with this primer. And again, hopefully this will keep any of that yellow from bleeding through, and the design or the paint on the front, all those different bright colors, hopefully it'll keep that from bleeding through as well. Now I do want to add some interest to this top portion, so I'm going to use this mold that I got from Amazon, and I'll have it listed in the description box. But I'm using the Sculpey air dry clay, which I'll also have linked in my description box. But I take some cornstarch and I put it into the mold just to keep that clay from sticking. I take the clay and I warm it up by rolling it around, and then I kind of roll it into a little sausage shape, so that, because I know this is a long mold, so I just get it in there, and then I start using my finger and my thumb to wipe back or to cut back the excess, and to try to get it flat on the inside for when I lay it down onto the box. But once I'm done, I just roll that out, and then I'm going to put some Gorilla wood glue onto the back and get that set into place. And when I do set it down, I make sure I softly go around all the little edges and make sure it's nice and adhered to the box. When that is done and it's kind of setting up pretty good, I go ahead in with my plaster colored paint, and I'm going to start painting around gently around the mold, but then I'm going to paint the rest of the box, and I paint inside and out. And it does take 2 coats of the paint, but it covered, you know, even with all that going on before, the 2 coats and the primer did cover that up really nicely. The inside was a little more tricky to paint, but I did get it done, and then I let this dry completely. Once that paint has dried really well, and it's been dry for probably a couple hours now, I'm going to go ahead and put a transfer, and I'm going to use this MIDI transfer set from Redesign with Prima called Lovely Labels, and I'm going to go ahead and put that transfer onto the box. You just use the stick that comes with the transfer set, and you rub the stick on there. You do have to take a little more time, especially with all that script, just to make sure it all transfers off. Then I go over it with the transfer sheet just to get rid of any bubbles or make sure it's nice and adhered to the box. Then I do go ahead and put this little beautiful message on the inside. Once all that's done, I do want to do something to the mold, so I'm going to kind of bring in some of that blue, and I'm going to use this Country Chic paint in the color Peacoat. And I'm going to paint over basically just the top of the mold. I'm not worrying about getting on the sides, but you know, make sure I get it painted really good, especially on the clay. You have to make sure that none of that white is coming through, which once I finish it, it wouldn't really matter anyway. But I just get that on there, let it dry completely, And then I'm gonna spray it because I don't want any of that blue paint to run or anything when I do go over with the final step. But I'm gonna use the matte clear enamel, and I'm going to spray all of this over. Now, you do also need to make sure when you use a transfer that you seal in that transfer. So I'm doing all this. Now, I do go back later once this is dry and I spray the inside. I just didn't film it, but I spray the inside of the box as well with this matte clear enamel. But this is pretty quick drying stuff, so once it's dry, I take it back inside, and then I'm going to go over with a dry brush using that plaster chalk paint, and I'm going to bring out the details of that mold with that blue underneath. And then once I do this, this box is finished, and this is how it turned out. This is going to make somebody's desk look just beautiful. You can keep stationery in it. I mean, you don't even have to use it in an office, but I just think that this turned out so pretty. I'm a sucker for blue and white anyway. Let me know what you think. I found this box at a thrift store recently. I feel like this was probably a sorority box from LSU when sorority sisters go through initiation or whatever you call it. They make stuff for each other, and being that this is LSU colors and it looks like something was taken off the lid and a girl's name, and there is also an inscription on the back, so I feel like that's probably what this is. But anyway, some of the paint is raised, so I am going to have to take it outside and sand that down. Once I've sanded it and I've cleaned it, I do want to go ahead and seal this in with some shellac, and I'm going to use this Zinsser shellac just to hopefully keep as much of that purple from bleeding through. I'm not using a white color, but I do want to try to, you know, seal some of this in, especially the writing on the bottom, because I did try to sand it and it didn't come off. So I don't want that bleeding through either. So anyway, I'm just going to give this a good coat of this shellac on the inside and the outside. Let that dry completely, and then I can go ahead and start painting. I'm gonna paint it with a green, but this time I'm not using moss. I'm using the Waverly chalk paint in the color Celery, which is a little bit lighter than that moss color, but I think with the transfer I'm gonna use, I think this is gonna look really pretty. So I go ahead and get started on the inside and give the box a coat of paint on the inside and the outside. And let me just go ahead and say that this box went through, man, this box put me through a lot. I think I went through plan A, plan B, and plan C to get this box done. I think it turns out beautiful. Can't wait for you to see it. But yeah, it definitely put me through the paces. When I had the box sitting out waiting to make over, I kept noticing one of the color corners looked like a different color of metal bracket, corner bracket. And as I was painting, I realized this is where plan B comes in. I realized that one of the brackets was actually missing. So I went ahead and took off the rest of the brackets, and I had to take it back outside, sand around those edges, just because there's now 2 coats of paint on there. Once I finished sanding all of those little places off, I had to take it back inside and repaint over those corners, especially where that purple was showing through. I thought for a minute that I was going to buy more of the corner brackets, but instead I decided to go ahead and use a mold. And this came from Temu a while back. So I'm going to use my air dry clay to create this mold right here, mold casting, and I'm going to put it on the corners. Again, I'm using the cornstarch in that mold to get it ready, because this is a very thin mold. So it doesn't take much clay, but it also can break easily. So I just put it in there, use my thumb to tear away the edges, roll it out, and I do it 4 times. Once all those are done, I take them and put some wood glue on the back of each one and place them on the corners of each side of the top of the box. I let those castings set with that glue for a little while. Now I'm going to go ahead and start with a transfer, and this is Yellow Bliss, and it's a redesign with Prima mold. These colors are gorgeous. So I'm going to use this one right here, but it is a little bit big for this space. So I'm going to cut around some of those flowers to get the bigger flowers, to get some of those smaller flowers that look like they're kind of coming from behind. I'm gonna cut those off. I can save those and use them for later, but for this project, they're just not gonna fit onto the top. So I go ahead and cut out all of those pieces, set them to the side, and now I'm gonna put my transfer down. Now this one gave me a little bit of a trouble. It didn't tear anything away, but it was giving me a lot of resistance with pulling that transfer sheet up, but I just kept working very slowly with that stick and using my fingers sometimes to get that transfer all transferred down. Once I got it all down, I used that vellum to rub along all of the transfer to make sure there were no bubbles. And then here's where Plan C comes in. Once I was done with that, I tried to open the box, but some of the paint had dried together, and as I was using that handle to try to open it, I broke the handle. So I'm having to take that hardware off, sand it back down, go over that area with some paint, and then fix the area that had made the box stick to begin with. And yeah, so we're on to Plan C. All right, now I didn't want to go to the store for anything, so I looked in my stash and I found these 2 pieces that I've taken off of other pieces of furniture. So I cleaned them up real good, and now I'm going to go over both of them with this Rub and Buff in antique gold. And I'm just using a brush to make sure I get on the top, of course, and then on the edges and in all of the little creases on the inside. And then I do the same thing with the little handle. And this little handle is not actually movable. Like it doesn't, go up and down. It's just in, stationary. But anyway, while I had that out, I went ahead and used the Rub and Buff on the latches, and I apologize for it not being in shot of the camera, but I did try to fix that. But anyway, I got all of those latches painted or covered with that Rub and Buff, and then I attach the long piece with the little nails, and then I am going to attach the little handle. To attach the handle, I'm just going to use some E6000. This is pretty strong glue. I really don't want to drill any more holes. So I'm just going to put a good amount of E6000 into the center of that little square. And then I am going to just kind of insert the knob in there. And it is going to squish out some of that E6000, but I'm then going to take a toothpick and kind of scrape around the edges of that and let that dry completely. Once it's dried completely, then I go back over that area with some more of the gold Rub and Buff just to make it all look like one piece. When that has had time to completely set and harden, then I'm going to just go over the whole box inside and out with some Waverly clear wax, I'm going to wipe back the excess with a shop towel, and then I'm going to use some white wax on the mold castings, and that gives it a nice creamy color. And after going from plan A to plan C, this is how it turned out, and I have to say, I really love this box. I think it turned out so pretty. Before I show you a final look at all of the projects from today, I do want to share a Bible verse. This one comes from Proverbs 16:32, and it says, "Better to be patient than powerful, better to have self-control than to conquer a city." Boy, patience and self-control definitely take work, but it is worth it in the end. I certainly hope that you enjoyed today's thrift makeovers, and I want to hear which one of these 3 box makeovers was your favorite. I don't really know which one is my favorite. I really like all of them, but anyway, I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you so much for coming by and watching the video. And if you're new to my channel and you've never been here before and you like thrift makeovers, thrift hauls, home decor, then I would love it if you would stick around and become a part of my YouTube family. Go ahead and click that subscribe button and click the bell button so you're notified when I upload new videos. And give this video a big thumbs up because it does help me out with YouTube. And if you want to see more videos like this, then go ahead and check out the boxes that you see on the screen right now. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.